You should be the host here.
We're laughing at you.
We're both Munster people, diehard Munster people, and we want them to do well.
The Red 78 with Alan Quinlan and Niamh Briggs. Nobody knows Munster rugby better.
I'd like to think I know a lot. Welcome along to episode 14 of the Red 78, your go-to podcast for everything Munster rugby here on the Rugby channel. I'm Alan Quinlan. Alongside me, as always, is Niamh Briggs. How are you, Niamh?
Good, Quinny. Good weekend.
Yeah, much better this weekend anyway. For everything Munster rugby, this is the place to be, and we want you to be involved as well. Let us know what your thoughts are on the latest Munster happenings by tweeting us at Rugby Channel 15 or leaving a comment wherever you're watching this across the Rugby Channel social media pages. And of course, to subscribe to the podcast, just search for the Red 78 and you'll get the podcast straight to your phone every week. Lots to talk about, Niamh, this week. I have a big long list made. I suppose, look, obviously the biggest talking point is the performance and the win with 14 men for 65 minutes. But I just want to start with, there's been a fair bit of negativity around all last week, and I think that's been well highlighted. And it probably, for the first time, I saw it kind of maybe Johan van Graan, the Munster head coach, get a bit sparky in his pre-match interview with Murray Kinsella. Lots of people were tweeting and texting and ringing about that as well. What did you make of it? Obviously, Murray asked him, about the performances and that negativity, and he wasn't best pleased. He reminded Murray that, we won the Castres game, in case he didn't remember, and we only lost the Connacht game by a couple of points. So obviously he believes it wasn't as bad as maybe people on the outside are making out. But I would have liked to have seen him just still, and I said this the week before, just talk about the performance was disappointing and that he understands the fans' frustration. Maybe not the ex-players, but the fans' frustration.
Yeah, look, I think first of all, I'd say got to a point for him this week where there was just a huge shift in the mindset between media, supporters and stuff after that kind of game, I think. And it can be really, tough to take, I think, especially when you're at a position where you're the head coach, you're putting a huge amount of effort into something. And, based off a performance or a couple of performances that they're raining down on you. And I said to you last week as well, I thought it was a really, I didn't like the way it was just an easy thing to throw out and say, the reason why they didn't win against Connacht was because he was leaving. I think that's just so poor in terms of, it's an easy out almost. But I did think he got spiky, and I was just like, a couple of things there. I think it got to a stage too. You got to remember the last time Munster played on television for RTE, he was still the head coach, and there was no news of him moving on. I think it was a couple of days afterwards when it broke, and obviously there's been no games. So I think Murray, as the commentator, was right to ask him, but he was also right to turn around and say, look, I've spoken about this in December. It's not about me anymore. I've said that. And he's continuously been asked in every press conference. And
did he speak about it? Did he speak about it, or was it just a press release?
No, he did. The first press conference he did. He said he gave his reasons, and that he was moving on. So there were personal reasons. You've got to accept that. And look, the whole situation is a bit weird. We're not going to run away from that. It's a bit odd in terms. It's not something that we're used to at rugby. That 6 months out, the coach is moving on. But if you go back and listen to Murray's second question about the performance, he said the performances. He didn't say, or he said the disappointments. Didn't say the performances. And I think that if I'm a player and I see Van Graan, going, well, we only lost one game, you're thinking, okay, he's got my back, and you can flip it that way too. There's players listening to what he's saying, and internally they'll know that kind of performance wasn't good enough. They'll know the Castres performance wasn't probably good enough, but they also realise that Europe is different. Castres have the ability, we'll talk about it later on, to bring you down to a dogfight, and it's really difficult to get away from that. So, but I did think it was a bit spiky, and I thought, it's probably at the end of his tether. We don't see the work he's putting in off the field, and if there's criticism to go to him, then it's got to be the right criticism. It's got to be constructive, and it can't be just, oh, he's leaving, just, get him to leave.
Yeah, I know. I fully understand. And I understand I've been in that environment where you try and keep things internal and you try and block out outside noise, which he's been quoted as saying this week. And that's fine. And sometimes you've got to be resilient and stick together. And that's very important as well. So I just think I would have liked to have seen, and we're not going to keep going on about it, but I would just like to have seen Johan say, look, these performances aren't good enough. There's certain reasons. And in fairness, we've spoke about the mitigation of them not being together in a long time, not being able to train and all that stuff. But just probably the Connacht one really exasperated everything with maybe not passing the ball or not trying to, attack a little bit more. So it is what it is. And it's no harm that maybe he did get a bit spiky. He's very, very nice man. He's very well respected. And
I think he came out though this week in the media and said, "Look,
much more
my heart
open
and soul and everything I'm doing." Yeah, and like yourself, like preparing for a game and like the emotions are high. He knows he's just probably after losing Pete there, goes into an interview and first question he's asked, it's not really about the game. It's more about the what's happening 6 months down the line. So, but yeah, look, it was. I actually was like, do you know what? Not seen that side of him before. He's coming out fighting, and as a Munster supporter, that's what you want, I suppose.
Yeah, and look, as I said, I think he probably, I like the fact that he got a bit narky, and you are going to get narky. It wasn't a normal week because there was a lot of pressure on them, and they've got to deal with that. They're paid professionals, and was the criticism too much? Maybe a little bit. I don't know, but based on what we saw. And a worrying trend in some of these games, not losing matches. We'll say that point again. It's not losing matches. It's the manner in which they lost to Connacht. And I just think that it's the fans really that you want the head coach to address. He doesn't have to address any of us as ex-players or anything like that, or media. It's really the fans, and it's trying to just give them a little bit of hope and say that it wasn't good enough. And I think he did say that yesterday in his press conference, that they're more disappointed than anyone. And of course, and he was much more open in that. He addressed the issue of him not wanting to be here. I don't think that's the case. And I that wouldn't be an issue for me. I think he's going to try and do his best. And it's just the nature. He's going to have to deal with this for the next few months. If you lose another game, these things will come up again. And that's just the reality of it. I have no issue with him moving on. Sport is sport, and that's it, professional sport. Let's get on to the
I think you need. I just think you need to hit the nail on the head completely there. Though it's not really what the last games, it's the manner how they're playing about and going about it. You're looking across Leinster, you're looking across Munster, Connacht, and you look at Ulster, and they all have the ability to be able to move the ball. We just don't seem to be at that level yet. I think that's where we have the ability. We're just not going that way. Yeah,
and I think that's where the frustrations come out. And it's just, look, the head coach is like the CEO of the company, comes out, you want him to try and just be kind of a little bit more transparent. Everybody's not out to get Munster, you know what I mean? We want him to do well, and we would love to see him do well, and just play and kind of have more energy and urgency. And they didn't have that in Connacht. It's been spoken about a lot. The players and the coaches had to take it on the chin. They reacted. Okay, the first, they beat Ulster 18-13, 65 minutes with 14 men. It didn't look great at the start, even with 15 men. Ulster looked like they came down, set their stall out, sensed an opportunity here, and tried to capitalise, being quite direct in one-out runners, being really physical, trying to maul them. And then when that try goes in from Herring early on, you think this could be a tough night for Munster. What did you assess of the performance? We'll talk about the sending off in a few minutes. And did we see a reaction?
Yeah, we definitely saw a reaction, that's for sure. I think I was similar to you. The first 10 minutes, I was, oh God, they'd given away, I think it was like 4 penalties in the first 5 minutes. It kind of seemed like that trend from Connacht was continuing on. And I think that try kind of sparked them a little bit. And I definitely think that we saw a reaction. I saw positive moments when they tried to move the ball. That they even, and I'm not talking about getting to an edge. I'm talking about quick pick and goes through a ruck, around the ruck, not giving defences time to settle. And they got really good change out of that. I think that the issues for me sometimes is that we still try to slow the tempo down for some reason or other. And realistically, I think kind of Ulster lost that as opposed to Munster went and won it, which it's not, that's not sound bad. I think Munster were brilliant defensively, like absolutely outstanding. I just think that Ulster losing John Cooney narrowed their attack and didn't exploit that space on the outside, unless it was kick space, and then Mike Haley was in the backfield covering so well. So I think it was a good performance. It won't be, there'll definitely be things they need to work on, but that tempo, the stuff that we saw them trying to do in terms of small picks around the ruck, going through the ruck, Casey, and not even waiting for Casey to get there, I thought that was really, really good from Munster. These little runners that are coming hard, and then you hit the outside forward at the back. These are the things that give you slow to fast ball. It's when you get fast ball, it's that ability to be able to continue to play at that level. I think at times Munster just tried to slow it down a few bits, which was a little bit frustrating, but a good performance, yeah.
Wasn't perfect, but as you say, a lot better stuff in the game. I think you talk about a reaction and energy and physicality, and they showed even when there was 15 men there. I think obviously when you go down a man, you've got to roll your sleeves up more, and they looked like the dominant side. They had more possession, more territory. Ulster lost control of the game. Now, I think in commentary, I said that maybe they were naive in kicking the ball away a little bit. They were 13 points up in the second half. 4 or 5 minutes, I think Doak gets another penalty, puts them 13-6 up. And I said it a little bit in commentary that I thought Ulster were naive in kicking the ball away and kind of giving Munster a glimmer of hope. But maybe that's a little bit unfair, because I think the work rate, the enthusiasm, the energy, and there was mistakes, was so much better than what we saw the week before against Connacht. And even if they lost that game, I would have said, well, look, there's mistakes, some little bits of shape in attack, maybe kicked it at times when they should have put it through the hands. You're always going to look back at games. But they passed the ball much more. They had 7 or 8 offloads. They'd won in Connacht. And I just think the overall energy and enthusiasm of the players and aggression was so much better. And I think that's what kind of laid down the marker, because it was a really attritional game. They were very, very physical, both sides. The breakdown was a real dogfight. And I just think that's what we want to see, isn't it, from Munster? And obviously a little bit of attack and taking an opportunity if it presents itself. At this level of rugby, when you're playing good sides, you're not going to get loads of chances. But when you do get them, we saw a little bit before half-time that condensed kind of pick and jam stuff again. And they failed to score. They got a penalty. They kicked the penalty this time. Do they need to get better at that, just on improve on those opportunities and be a little bit more ruthless when they get into those zones? Now, they got 2 penalties from brilliant pressure that Crowley kicked to make it 7-6, but they had opportunities there, hadn't they, that maybe they look back and see hugely. Some of the stuff against Connacht.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there was a couple of occasions that if you had a wide camera out, you'd look at either Mike Haley or Sean French in Acres' space screaming for the ball, and it's still in there. And I thought that little spell kind of frustrated me too, because I felt like, previous weekends Connacht, they had another spell like that and turnover from Connacht, and you're thinking in your head, like, surely, there's been clarity in relation to what they're trying to do here. Surely there's clarity in terms of what they want to do. And the top tier teams, the Exeters, Saracens, the Leinsters, La Rochelle's, Toulouse's, when they get into that scoring zone, they always come away with points. Very, very rarely do they not. And with tries,
Munster did come away. To be fair, they took the 3 points, and Ulster were giving away penalties.
And you've got it, but you've got to have more. You've got to have more patience for me in terms of what you're doing. So you've got to have a little bit of those angular running. You've got to be able to sit defenders down, and you've got to be able to, like, the second half, the Mike Haley try, like, that was there in the first half too. Now I'm glad that we saw it in the second half. It means that we're looking at it and we're getting better. But to be ruthless at this level, you've got to make those pay.
And Craig Casey's performance, and I think it's unfair sometimes to, God, we keep mentioning the week before. Let's try not do that anymore. But I think this week his performance was so full of zip, full of pace, looking for runners, looking to make passes. And we saw that in the second half, as you said, with the Mike Haley try. Kieran Treadwell gets sin bin, they kick to the corner. They're much more. I had a real feeling that they were going to score there, even if there was 15 on. That they looked, just their body language looked different, and they had a rattle for a number of phases, and then bang, Casey goes for the pass, and Mike Haley scores, and you just get a sense then that they were starting to believe that they could do this. He missed the conversion. It's 13-11, but that reaction and that kind of, so we have a contrast to both halves. They capitalize here, and if you're looking for improvements, I think they just need to get, and I was asked a question about DNA and Munster's DNA the week before. It's trying to find that ruthless kind of streak when you get into the 22, that you put on so much pressure that eventually you find a gap, you find an opening, and at worst you come away with 3 points. And I think that'll do the players a lot of good, and it'll be a bit of happiness about scoring that try. And obviously it was a vital score. It gave them the opportunity to go and win the game. So that was much better, I think, and they deserve a bit of credit for that.
Yeah, hugely. I just think that was a big pressure point too, in terms of making, games kind of have peaks and troughs. When you hit your purple patch, you have to make a pay. I thought Munster absolutely out muscled Ulster at times, and especially in that second half. I thought they were completely dominant. I think that, Ulster found it really difficult, even against 14 players. And I just think that could be a huge catalyst for that group to have a good chunk of confidence going into the next 2 weeks.
Okay, we move on to the last try then, the Alex Kendall try. What an offload from Gavin Coombs. Jack O'Donoghue came in for some criticism last week. His work rate for that score, making the line break. That just kind of had a sense that, not that everything is perfect and that they fixed everything, but this is what these guys are capable of. They're good footballers. They have an ability to read what's in front of them. I know the coaches have come in for some criticism, but out on the field, you sometimes have to play what's in front of you. And I just thought, Gavin Coombs was outstanding. He 27 carries in the game. We saw glimpses of him being back to what he can do best for Munster. And that offload with the right hand out the back for that try, keep the ball alive. I think it was to Josh Wycherley. It was brilliant. It was a brilliant score. And I think they deserved it for the work rate, and the energy and the effort that they put in that game. Of course, don't get me wrong, they will look back, and there's certain things that, I think they kicked away at times when they probably should have. And that was probably sometimes out of a fear of just trying to get into the opposition half and with only 14 men. And sometimes the attack shape could be a lot better, like we highlighted. But I think there was so many positives for them to take out of that. And to get the winning try, I think I watched the players. There was an incredible sense of relief, and the coaches when the cameras went to the coaches box. And incredibly, they win a game that, like we said at the start, they probably didn't look like they'd win. I think they deserve a bit of credit this week, surely.
Yeah, absolutely. And that last try was just, epitome of what you're trying to do in terms of trying to stretch defences. I think they go from one edge to the other, and you're looking to find soft shoulders to be able to get in behind defences. Once you get in behind defences, then you can flood channels and make it work. I think that, Gavin Coombs worked incredibly hard. I still think that he needs more matches. He looks like to me to be the type of player that needs more and more games, and he's the ones that the more he plays, the better he gets. Some players can just turn up and not play for weeks and have it on.
We spoke about the back row last week. I think this week Coombs, Hodnett and Tyburn were outstanding. I said that. I just really think if your back row are going well, making carries, making tackles, making turnovers, coming up with big moments, it gives you a great opportunity to really influence the game. And John Hodnett was brilliant as well. I think he's getting better.
Super, yeah.
I think he's need matches, more games for sure. But Ty Byrne just showed the level he's at. He came up with so many big turnovers and big moments in that game. I just think it was a phenomenal performance from him. And for a guy who wasn't starting initially, to be told maybe 20 minutes before the game, you're playing now from the start. He was captain, and I think he kind of led from the front, didn't he? He was outstanding.
Yeah, he was brilliant. I think both him and Mike Haley deserve a huge amount of credit for work rate, for ability to move off the ball, to be able to replay ahead of time. Ty Byrne is so exceptionally good at picking his moments. If you ever watch him, just focus in on him. He'll allow a ruck or a carry to happen very close to him. He'll just stand there and look like he's disinterested in the pillar. And then the next carry that they make, he'll be in like a shot. And he's just so clever at it. And disrupting that maul in the first half, getting a turnover, that was a huge pivotal moment because Munster were under pressure at times through that maul D, especially in that scoring zone. So he was incredible, and he to me is the on-form player in Ireland at the moment. He's really continued on since that Lions tour, and his weight is worth in gold, be it as back row or second row. He's just a phenomenal footballer.
Yeah, we spoke about the positives a lot. So Mike Haley was really good. Chris Farrell looked a lot sharper in what he was trying to do. And Rory Scannell hasn't had a lot of opportunity. I thought he played well. Thomas Ahern. So if you're rating the players this week, I think you're looking at 7s or 8s out of 10. There's negatives and things that you look at and mistakes that all these players made, but I just think you're looking at 7 or 8s. When you're looking at Ty Byrne, you're looking at 9 or 10, 9 out of 10 possibly. So I think it was really so much better for you. What are the negatives?
Oh, sorry. I just want to say, I think the big thing there is the reason why so many are 7 or 8s is a chunk had played the previous week. So 2 games in a row.
They got a bit of continuity. Yeah, they got some continuity, and we got that reaction, which their backs were to the wall a bit. But look, where do they need to be better? Just really briefly before we get on.
Tempo. We got to look at tempo. They got to look at controlling that so that, you've got to look at what your squad is and who you're playing. And for me, Munster play best when they play with pace and they play with intensity. They're square to the ball. They're having lines of running, and they're getting over the cane line. And their ability to hold on to the ball then is really good once they do that. I still don't understand that when they have moments of pressure where they have numbers up in defence, they have 4v2, 4v3s, these kind of numbers, and if they slow the ball down and they look to kick it. I still find that, frustrating to watch and understand when you have so much talent and you can play at this level.
Does the communication need to be better on the field then, that they take control there and react to those things themselves better?
Well, I presume it's a pattern that they're looking to play. They're obviously trying to put the ball down into the opposition so that they can, try and squeeze them from there and get them to make mistakes. But I think when Munster, they go and have a look, and we saw it at times, obviously, last week, Damon Donnelly making that break from his own line. Okay, obviously he kicked it afterwards, but, he makes the break. And that Gavin Coombs, that was almost in their own half, and they had the ability to get to an edge and to work it to the opposite edge. And they had the ability. Sometimes they seem to just slow down for whatever reason.
And maybe need more control and more vocal leaders on the team to actually step up and take control and call certain plays and give certain instructions. I think maybe that's something. Jack Crowley is someone who I'm a big fan of. I think he had some really good moments in the game. He obviously dropped the ball twice, took his eye off the ball. I think that's something that you learn from, and he'll get over. Do you persist with him? What did you make of his overall performance? I was a little bit of the opinion, even though, and Ben Healy, both these guys and Jake Flannery are very exciting players for the future. So I don't want to big one up over the other, but I just see something in Crowley at the moment that if you need a little bit of continuity in that position with Joey Carberry out, and I just think there's something there. There's this little bit of spark and attack there that could be really, really positive for this team if they want to try and play a little bit more attacking rugby.
Yeah, 100%. I actually was really impressed with him too. And it's at the start, I was kind of thinking, oh God, like, you know, he's trying to make the most of this moment. So it's like trying too hard, you know, that kind of a type of thing. And but he was exceptional. Even inside that 22, you know, the double step, only for Vermeulen gets a hand to it, he's away. And so yeah, look, he definitely offers the X factor. He offers spark. I like the fact that he was calling those passes, those 3 passes out the back, which, you know, we don't see very often from Ben Healy, but they're 2 different type of players. So I think going into this weekend, you got to look at, okay, what do Castres do? Castres make it ugly. They want to try and spoil things. And so do you look to a player like Ben Healy that can make a territory pressure type game with that big boot? Or do you think, okay, let's go and have the courage to play down there and see? And so it'll be a big thing. But both of them are very good.
It'll be interesting into seeing what kind of selection they have this week. We'll talk a bit about it in a minute. Just on the red card, Simon Zebo, it's his double barrel question. 2 questions here in one. The red card, just your assessment on that. If I was to give my opinion quickly, I don't think there was any malice in it. I think he's trying to get a big hit. Timing is all wrong. It's got to be much more careful. Jack Crowley could have been joining him as well, but thankfully Mike Lowry was okay, and Zebo signed a new 2-year contract. We haven't seen much of him this year. We spoke at the start of the season about him lifting the crowd, exciting people and all that kind of stuff. Just on the sending off and on him extending his contract.
Yeah, obviously, I think it was the red card. Definitely, for me, it was the height that he went in and the fact that, you know, he couldn't get a chance to wrap because he had the kind of like chicken wing, what they call it. So, but I also 100% agree. There's absolutely no malice in it. He's not a malicious player. He's anything but. I just think you're right. Timing was wrong. And also, that could be also a case. The fact that he hasn't played a huge amount, he's trying to make a big statement. You know, he's over exuberant, excited and just, you know, smashed into Lowry. So it's unfortunate. And he's been lucky, you know. I think obviously had a couple of games at the start of the season and then was wrapped up in that COVID thing in South Africa, you know, going in with Ireland, not getting game time there. So it's been an up and down season for him, but delighted to see him, you know, 2-year contract. That's brilliant. He's settled now. You know what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. And look, you just want to see him pushing on from here. But
as a coach, Niamh, and this is something that's coming up a lot about the technique of players and the tackle, their entry points into rucks. How do we change this? Do we tell players you can't actually smash anyone anymore? You've just got to be more careful. So if you're going 100% looking for that big hit, do you have to bring it back to 80% so that you're in a little bit more control? If you were coaching your team this week, which you will be doing, and you had an issue with a red card at the weekend, what would you say to your players? How are we going to change this in the game? Or is it just unfortunate that we're going to see this going forward, that players get their timing wrong?
Yeah, we just got to protect the player. I think that's the most important thing. And every team will have their own defensive principles and their own philosophies. And, you know, you go through the principle of, okay, what's your tackle entry? Is it too high? Yeah, okay, well then there we go. Are you square? No, okay, well then how do you make yourself square? You get there earlier. You have control of your feet. So look, it's just unfortunate, I think. And to be fair, you know, they're going to get moments of that when you're just trying to make big statements in games. And I do think that they came to the right conclusion, unfortunately, for Simon Zebo, but I just think that the onus has to be on the player that's making the tackle, that you've got to be much more in control of yourself and your body so that, you know, when you do get to smash, and you can smash people in control, you've just got to be able to. But he was just unfortunate. I think Jack Crowley making the hit right before him, like that little split second, puts things off a little balance, and it's just really unfortunate. So, but the onus has to be on the tackler, I think, and that's what I say to my players. And we you know, we've got to make sure that we tackle safely, I suppose, as opposed to anything else.
Okay, so what was obviously the build up to the Ulster game, a rough week for him, and probably a tough week, particularly answering questions about the performances and stuff like that. They get a good result. They move themselves up the table, and hopefully gain a bit of momentum and continuity. There was no Keith Earls, no Conor Murray, no Damien Dialende, no Jean Klein. Possibly, well, Earls and Murray are back training. O'Mahony is training. Jean Klein trained this week. Not really sure about Damien Dialende. So those 5 guys having them back in the mix for Castres on Friday night in round 3 of Europe. I think that's a bit of a hard edge that you need, I think, going to France this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just looking up this morning, to be honest. Last visit to Castres was a 1-point loss. They won by a point this year. 2017 was a draw. So it's always a very, very close game, and irrelevant of whether Castres are focusing on this competition or not now. They still bring a hard edge. They're just very messy. I've watched them a couple of weeks now in the top 14, and they just like to engage teams in the physical side of things. They put pressure at the breakdown, they're incredibly physical in their carries, their set piece is good. So you need the likes of, O'Mahony for me is having a brilliant season. We need him back in there. We need Keith Earls. We need these guys to be able to offer X factor, because you've got to have the courage to play, I think. Take it away from that physical zone. And
that was my next
it.
question. Yeah. So what obviously you've highlighted the fact, and I think most of the listeners will know, watch the game and know anything about Castres, is they're a difficult side to play. And I mean that respectfully, and because maybe the word negative was used, but they're very, very effective in the directness, their kicking game. Urda Paletta controls things. Rory Cockett, he's abrasive, he's mouthy, he's in your face, and they have a real niggle about them. They lost at home to Quinns in round 1, and obviously lost to Munster in round 2. So with 2 games left in the group stages, you could say, well, maybe their minds are not switched on. But I know from the history between Munster and Castres, this is a game they'll really want to win, and they'll target on Friday night. It's a long shot from if they beat Munster and win away in Quinns, 2 wins, who knows, might get them into the round 16. But it's going to be a really difficult game, and we saw that from the game just before Christmas. Just briefly, the approach Munster take at the weekend now, do they try and build on what they did at last weekend against Ulster? With the amount of passes, they were up 150 or 60 at the weekend, as opposed to the 45 that were highlighted the week before. Or do they, and maybe it'll come down to Crowley or Healy, who plays at 10. I just think they'll make a statement if they pick Jack Crowley there and say, look, we're going to try and attack here, and we're not going to try and kick. Now, Castres do try and force you backwards and try and make you to make mistakes in your half, and they're very, very dangerous and aggressive at the breakdown. So I'm not a head coach, and you're kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't here. But I believe that Munster have to be brave here and go and attack. Yeah. And if they win this game on Friday night, it'll be down to taking opportunities and not running over Castres or kicking to the corners. It's actually playing with that tempo and pace and trying to get into multi-phase and hope for opportunities then. I think that's the way to beat Castres at the weekend. And obviously they've got to be very physical, get their set piece right, because it is a challenging and tough game. And I really think Castres will love nothing more than to beat Munster on Friday night.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Quinny. I think they've got to go and be brave and look to play to the edges, but not although that they've got to be able to play with tempo, I think. And tempo doesn't always mean edges. You can be real, you can play real fast and with pace in and around that ruck area. You've got to be able to make them uncomfortable. That's the best thing. That's the best way to kind of describe to you, that you make Castres uncomfortable. Don't give them a second to try and engage into that kind of physical dominance that they're looking to do. And you just, make the pressure pay. I think that's a big thing. So you'd like to see an evolution for sure on what last weekend brought, and hopefully we can do that.
They're third in the top 14 at the moment. Yeah. They've played 15 games, won 9, and haven't been beaten at home in the league this season. But Quinns did beat them there by attacking them a lot, I think. And I remember that Dombrand try off the back of a line out. He went through Ur de Paletta. It was a mistake. It was a 7-pointer, that one. But Quinn's looks like they profited from attacking and trying to play with a little bit of width and expansion in their game and being brave. So it's going to be a really, really tough task. And Castres side that can make you look like a very average side. So it's a real tricky one because they can really, really frustrate you with their niggle, their in-your-face type approach. And it works for them. They're a very hard side to beat at home. And I spoke to Mike Prendergast and Ronan O'Gara about this. It's a really difficult place to go. I experienced it myself, and their DNA is to make it really difficult for teams at home. So it's Munster have really got to be on their game this week. And if they win on Friday or were to go to France, I think it's a huge step forward for this team because they'll have qualified for the round 16 with one game to go. I know they'll want to win all 4 games, but you lose this one, it makes it tricky for Wasps the week after. So let's hope that they get a performance and get a result and build on what we saw at the weekend, because there was a lot more positives than negatives this week, which was thankfully we were able to talk about. Just finally, before we go, Malachi Fekitoa has been linked with Munster. We haven't officially heard that Damien Dialende is leaving, but would he be a good signing for Munster?
Yeah, I think he's obviously a very good player. I think I just want someone that's going to buy into the province and really ingrain themselves in the culture of, I've watched him. He's been quite injury prone with Wasps. So, are you getting a player that's going to play week in, week out for you? I think that's the biggest thing.
I think if he's fit and well, he's a very talented player.
But there's no, as I say it, there's no question in his ability. He's like outrageous in his step and his ability to offload. So could open doors for Munster for sure.
Yeah, we'll wait and see on that one, and who they will sign, or will they bring in an overseas back. Lots of people have different opinions on what they should and shouldn't do, given we saw a lot of those younger players in Wasps, and that excited everybody. Well, thankfully this week you didn't give out to me anyway, like you did last week, for interrupting you. That's it from episode 14 of the Red 78. We'll be back next week to break down every minute of what we hope is a good performance and a win in Castres this time around. We did say it's going to be very difficult. So don't forget to get in touch with your thoughts on all things Munster throughout the week, and we'll be sure to get them on next week's podcast. You can tweet us at Rugby Channel 15 or search for the Rugby Channel on YouTube and leave a comment. Make sure you subscribe to the Red 78 wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll see you next week. Thank you again, Niamh, and hopefully it is a positive one next week. Cheers.